Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. This is the #1 WordPress entrepreneur show. If you haven't found us, where the heck have you been? It's one of the only WordPress business podcasts out there on the web. What we do is we talk to people who use WordPress as the cornerstone of their business. Either they're an agency doing client services, or they're an entrepreneur and they might sell products and services and goods, or they just happen to use WordPress as the foundation of their store. We're going to talk to them and figure out how they run their business and what WordPress means in their daily lives. You can find more of this at mattreport.com. Join the mailing list, mattreport.com/subscribe. And by the way, we're loving the 5-star reviews coming in at iTunes, as every podcaster does. And don't forget, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on YouTube, on SoundCloud. You can just listen to the show at mattreport.com, whatever you want to do. But if you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, it helps us get found a little bit better. You don't even have to leave a review. All you have to do is scroll to the 5th star. Just click that. Leave that 5-star. That really helps us. Even if you have a 1-star, leave that and leave a comment for that, because I want to know how we can get better. Again, mattreport.com/subscribe. And this show is brought to you by Conductor plugin. This is the latest product that I've released. It's a great way to build content-rich sites without having to touch the code. If you're a WordPress user, a blogger, a power user, or even a developer, I invite you to check that out. You can learn more at conductorplugin.com. And today, I think the reigning champion of Matt Report interviews, my good buddy Brian Casel, he's going to join us today. Well, first, let me introduce him. If you don't already know him, if this is your first show joining into the Matt Report, he's the founder of Restaurant Engine, Hotel Propeller. He has a product called Design for Conversions, and now recently launched a product called Productize. It's a interesting twist on a product. Sort of educational product. It's a class. It's a consulting. It's pretty awesome, and we're going to talk about that today in that recent launch. So, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back on, Matt. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's always great to catch up with you and bring in the insights. I'm always sort of admiring from afar your consistency, your ability to do the research and put in the work and then launch something. You know, it's funny because I haven't told anybody yet, but I started to craft a book, right? Craft an ebook, and started to sit down and write. And
Nice.
every time I open it up, I'm using Simple Note to draft this, and every time I open it up, I'm like, how the hell does Brian do this? They are every day, day in and day out, create content. It's quite a talent, my friend.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's just writing in general. I think for anyone, whether you're writing a book or just blogging on a regular basis, man, that is one skill that I think everyone should hone and get better at. And even if you're doing things like videos and podcasting, if you write the scripts beforehand or just write the outlines, I mean, writing is just so valuable. Mm-hmm. It's been huge for me for a while. Nathan Barry as well, another well-known writer, teacher. I think he's kind of known now for that 1,000 words a day routine and how that's had an impact on his business. And I don't exactly do the same kind of routine, but it's for sure. Whenever I'm writing on a consistent basis, I was literally just writing an article right before we hit record today, and it just helps clarify my thoughts and just think about things in a clearer way, and it just really helps. And then of course it helps you connect with more people. So. Yeah,
and that's sort of the essence, right, or the genesis of your new Productize product. Tell us about that. What is that, and how did you get to this point of creating this, or why did you create this new product for us?
Yeah, sure. So Productize is it's an advanced training course and a live workshop to help you launch and grow and market a productized service business. So productized services are something that we're really seeing a lot more of recently, or at least this term productized services or productized consulting is kind of popping up quite a bit lately. And basically, the concept is rather than building software or really investing all the time and effort and money into building something like a SaaS or very big kind of product that way, a productized service allows you to launch a product very, very quickly to actual paying customers, so that you can not only just get feedback and validate an idea, but actually build a product around the manual service. And then the question becomes, well, how can you scale up if the thing is done completely manually? And the answer to that, and what I teach in Productize, is how to scale up and systematize a manually delivered service through building systems and processes and automation. And then the other piece of this is how to market a productized service, because it is very different from marketing and selling typical freelance work or consulting work. As a productized service, what makes it different is that it's focused on one single service, a high value added service, packaged at a set price and a set scope, and it's designed for one ideal customer. So you're focusing in on one service, but you're also focusing in on one ideal customer. So the first part of the course kind of goes through how to figure that out, how to target your one thing and your one customer, and then how to craft your value proposition. So it kind of covers all that. It is delivered in a self-serve video course over 20 lessons, and then periodically, and right now, I don't know when this is going to go live, but right now we're at the end of October, and currently there are spots open up for the live workshop package, and that's happening in November. And what that basically is you get all the courses, all the course videos and everything in the course book, but you'll also join me and a small group of about 5 people. I'm breaking it up into small groups of 5 on a live 2-hour workshop where we're actually going to work through each other's businesses, hammer through specific strategies around where each of the 5 attendees are at, kind of like a mastermind group. Where we'll learn about the type of services that you're currently offering, how you're launching that into a productized offering, and then if you're a little bit further along, how you can implement some marketing strategies and sales systems to really get that growing, and then of course systemizing and scaling up.
One of the things that I'm always in tune to a lot of these a lot of web marketers, as you are too, and we probably know a lot of the same people, and I'm always looking at folks thinking that this kind of thing, like launching a digital product or launching an educational product, there's a fine balance between like imposter syndrome and you're not ready to do this yet. Like you are not ready to teach anybody. In fact, you shouldn't hit publish on your work because you might not have the right experiences and you're doing a disservice to yourself and your potential client. So there's a fine line of that to you need to get this shit out into the world. You need to tell people about it. When did you make that leap? Not saying that you were ever on the left-hand side is the way I'm holding it up, but how do you decipher that? How do you make that leap? When do you know you're ready? Is Brian today look at Brian from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, say, man, what were you thinking back then? Like, what's the difference?
That is a great question, and I think a lot of people run into that. Even if you're simply just blogging, like, am I even an authority to blog about this topic? That question comes up quite a bit, right? And I'll say 2 things. I mean, number one, you're more experienced than you might think you are. You are. I am. Everyone listening to this has some level of experience that a whole group of people out there does not have that same experience that you have. So you have to keep that in mind. Whenever I'm writing, I'm always thinking about the person who is a year or 2 or 3 behind where I'm at right now. And I subscribe to plenty of newsletters and blogs and podcasts of people that I think are a couple of years ahead of me. So I learn from them. And you've got to always keep that in mind. And even so the things that you write about today, they're going to seem very obvious to you. Like, they're going to seem too easy for you because you know how to do them. You're experienced with them. But there's someone out there who's just getting started with this stuff. So, and they're lost. They need answers. They're searching for questions. They're searching for answers to their questions. And if you're going to answer those questions in an article, in an ebook, in a course, that's how you make it connect. And then the other thing that I would add here is I think it's important. I've always thought that it's important to learn from the experiences of others. So in my course, Productize, Yeah, a lot of it is based on my experience building Restaurant Engine. Restaurant Engine is very much a productized service, and I can talk more about that later, how we've systemized and scaled up largely manual processes within that business. And so a lot of the lessons are taken from my experience of building that over the last 3 years. But I was very conscious of making a point of basing the majority of the course on my research into other people and what they're doing with productized services. So the course includes, not to talk so much about the actual course package and everything, but there are 11 other case study interviews that I've done with other productized service owners who they do productized services in a very different way than what I've done. Everyone's a little bit different in different ways, but then I also noticed that there are trends that are similar across everyone's business, and then I drew on the experience of them and built that into the course lessons and the material, and I'm teaching based on example. Sure, some of it's from my own example and experience, but a lot is based on the experience of others. And I've seen, and even, again, looking at like blog articles and bloggers that I think are really effective at this, it's the ones who draw in examples from other people and show you, look, how does this concept actually apply in the real world? And you can do that by talking about your own experience or talking about others. And I think it's important to kind of mix both. And if you're talking about a topic that you feel that you are less experienced on it, then lean more heavily on examples from more well-known people. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah. I think that there is. By the way, can you hear me typing? Because I'm taking notes actively.
No, I don't hear you typing, but I do hear the trucks driving by my office here. So.
Awesome. I think you're right, and I know. Well, I don't think you're right. I know you're right. And I love the advice that when you're writing or you're creating these products, you're thinking of the person who's 1, 2, 3 years behind us, because it's so. Like, think about, if for those in the audience who do client services, and that's a majority of us. I mean, your clients, even today, your clients are like, what's this Facebook ads thing? How should I use Facebook? And you're like, really? This is 2014. I'm not even on Facebook anymore.
Right.
Like, how are you just catching up to this, right? And it's so true. The world, as small as it seems when you're on Twitter or somewhere else, because you just have this hyper focus, you think it's so small, and things are moving so fast for you. It's really this huge open ocean for the other folks who are just catching up to this stuff.
That's totally right. And these markets are constantly expanding, whether it's WordPress or freelancing in general, or just working with clients. More and more people are going freelance, and more people are getting into WordPress. So there's a vastly increasing need for education around this stuff. So yeah.
You're absolutely right. I love that. I love that you just said that there's an increasing need for education. So somebody like myself sitting back saying, hey, you know what? My business is 80, well, maybe not 80%, maybe 60 to 70% of consulting service side of the house. Then there's the deliverables, technical development, and design and things like that. But for those of the folks that are in the audience, how can we start to even say, okay, I do this WordPress consulting gig. I charge $100 an hour to talk to somebody. Just talk, not deliver. How can I turn that into a product? How can I take my service and put that into a product? What are some good takeaways for those thinking about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you a couple of steps, and these are taken straight from the course. And I'll talk through these, and then I'll actually give you a couple of examples of people in a second. So, number one, when you think about systemizing and scaling up, some of the most common things that come to mind are like hiring a team and delegating the work and getting into procedures, and all of that stuff will come. Those are like steps 3 and 4 of this process. But really, step number 1 is standardizing the work, making it as predictable as possible. So, currently, what most of us do as freelancers is, you take on any and every project that comes along, and any and every client that comes along. And what happens is you get into these discovery meetings, with like a new prospect that might become a client. You get into these meetings, and you have to learn everything about them, like what do they need, what do they value, what don't they value, what do they care about, and then you have to kind of reinvent the product that you're selling that one person every time you're reinventing your scope in the project, and you're bundling in all different types of services, and then the value proposition changes from time to time. So the first step in all this is to nail down a single value proposition, a single service, a set of deliverables, or just a single deliverable, and package that at a very specific scope and a price tag. And it's not about just kind of like haphazardly picking one thing and putting a number on it. It's really figuring out what is that one thing that is most valuable to customers, and then who is that most ideal customer, who stands to benefit the most from this, and who experiences this problem more than anyone else, so much so that they're willing to pay for it to have it solved. And so that's really the standards in the way that you do your service. And then even once you set up your one service that you're doing, we all know that there are 10 different ways to accomplish the same task. Especially when it comes to building websites and using WordPress. I mean, there's 1,000 different plugins out there. There's 1,000 different ways to build it custom. So what you want to do is standardize the way that you do things, whether it's using the same framework every time, or using the same coding platform, or using the same tools and methods and your procedures. First, you have to work on that before you get into the next steps, which are document everything that you're doing. So documenting things into procedures, and constantly refining and improving those procedures. And then it gets into hiring and delegating to a team, if you want to go that way. I mean, not everyone wants to grow beyond just one person, and that's perfectly fine. Delegating to a team, giving them those standard, repeatable service-related tasks, because now they're predictable, now they're standardized. So now you can train your employees to do the same thing week in, week out.
One of the things that I completely 1,000,000,000% agree on is standardizing the work. And I'm glad you brought that up, because again, a lot of the freelancers that I talk to, folks that are in the Matt Report Pro, folks that I consult with or just generally chat with on the site, they come to me and they say, I'm having a hell of a time, charging, getting the right project number out there. In other words, I might be scoping something and going in too low. I thought I could get away with a good profitable project at $1,500. At the end of the day, I should have charged $5,000, or even more. And they say that I didn't do enough discovery, or the client's coming back to me and they're asking for more. That's because you haven't standardized and you haven't set your own set in stone, right? If you're going to take the route of like that dynamic consulting agency or agent, you literally have to think like Ari Gold from
Entourage.
Yeah. You really have, or some like high-paid sports agent, because every time you walk into a scenario, you are coming up with something new. And imagine you walked into a dealership, a car dealership. Let's say it's a Toyota Camry, and you look at that Toyota Camry and go, I want that but I want 3 doors, I want a V8, I want a battery pack, and also powered by that, I want a 10-inch LCD screen in it, and they're like, whoa, 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 like this is what you get. It's a Toyota Camry. You got these 3 choices. You want custom, all of a sudden you're at the Aston Martin dealership and you're paying like $300,000. It's still an Aston Martin at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, in the course, I have a couple examples like this. It's about selling a product. You're selling one thing with a single price tag, and so, for example, you wouldn't go into a convenience store and pick up a product off the shelf, or go on Amazon.com and find what you're looking for. You're in the market for a new podcasting microphone. I'm not going to find a microphone and be like, oh, well, it doesn't have a volume switch. I'm not going to go email Jeff Bezos and ask him to adjust this product feature set.
Right.
What happens with a productized service when you're selling it as a product, that whole phase of negotiation around price is basically just removed from the table. You're just being totally upfront, like, this is what you get and this is the price tag. And then what happens is it removes that from the conversation. So the conversation becomes around value. All right, we know what the price tag is, so now what do I get for that? And how is that actually going to impact my business? that's what the customer is thinking about. They're not really thinking along the lines of like, well, how can I get this for less, or how can I, so
Yeah.
that's really what it comes into.
And that's exactly it. I mean, for the freelancer consultant that's going into a client that has no experience dealing with the deliverables of a web project or whatever service it is you might be offering, they don't see the value in it, especially when you come in there as like the blank canvas. Like, they get to paint on you and say, here's what I want you to do for me. And you're sitting there like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And then in 6 months, you're like, this is the worst project I ever took on.
Exactly.
I like the method. I like your method, and maybe you have some experience in this. And I think we've talked about this once before. Is if you were to create a product, if the freelancer out there created a product and it was like, how to properly set up WordPress. Let's just say that's the product. Is that a good cornerstone for adding on some other service to it? Like, you go to a client, the client says, I got $500 to spend. Can you build me Facebook? And you say, I can't, but I've got this product called How to Build Your WordPress Website. That's $500. You can buy that.
Yeah.
Have you come across anything with positioning and having those products out there like that?
Absolutely. I've seen that again and again. When you have your one cornerstone product, and maybe it's kind of like a side product that comes into the conversation with prospects, or maybe it's your main thing. That is well defined. It has the price tag. This is the scope. It might not have everything that the client needs, and then if you have that flexibility and you want to offer additional consulting services on top of that, perfect. We see that both with productized consulting and then also software products. So if you're selling a plugin, or if you're selling like a SaaS product, and this kind of relates to what I've done with Restaurant Engine, is you can sell the one software as a standalone tool, but perhaps as an add-on, a productized service on top of that to help you implement the software, help you set it up, and help you run it. So a few examples come to mind. Jared Drysdale launched just about a month ago. landingpageinAday.com, and I think currently for $1,000. He will design and write the copy for one landing page for your upcoming product or for some current product that you're offering. So it's like a sales page, one-page website, or one additional page to add onto your website in a day. So it only takes one day. You press buy now, you pay the $1,000, and then you schedule the day in the calendar. And I think there's like a form that happens in between there, like you input you answer a few questions, and then Jared will actually write up the content and he'll design the landing page. And so the first thing about that example is that he launched this service literally in a weekend. And he told me in my interview with him that like he had the idea on a Friday, put his sales page live on a Sunday, and posted it to a couple of forums, and by Tuesday or Wednesday he actually booked 7 of these projects. Now the other interesting thing about his story is about a year ago he launched a software product called what was it called? Cascade. So it's like a design framework, kind of like a CSS design framework that lets you swap in and out different styles and like really quickly mock up, or not mock up, but I actually build and design a landing page. That is sold as a standalone product that you can buy. But what he's done is he's using his own product, his software, to streamline his way of setting up landing pages. So when someone purchases his productized service, he sets them up with a landing page very, very quickly because he's already built a product to do that, and it just helps him streamline. And I've done a similar thing with Restaurant Engine. Early on when I launched that, my goal with that was to be like a do-it-yourself. Any restaurant owner can come on and sign up and create their own website and do that. And then over the years, it has evolved to the point now where every new customer, we talk to them on the phone, we get them on board, we manually set up their website for them, and then we'll even make ongoing updates for them. That's all included in the service, and we charge for all that. We charge a setup fee, and it's required for all customers now. And but we can set up a new site for a customer in about 2 days. We do it very, very quickly because we have this software layer underneath. So we've like added on this productized service on top of an existing software, and that we see that pattern again and again.
Yeah. I want to dive into the mind of an entrepreneur, specifically yours, of course. And I'm very much into, obviously, entrepreneurship, startups. For better or for worse, I'm into the glamour of startups. Like, I love watching like Jason Calacanis This Week in Startups and seeing all these companies that are getting funded and multi-millions of dollars and TechCrunch Disrupts of the world. I love watching that. And though I know it's like entertainment for me, it's like it's like probably not good for us, right? It's probably like the equivalent of like the Kardashians, right? You shouldn't be watching that because you shouldn't want to live that lifestyle. And I feel like I'm doing the same thing sometimes. Do you think, I consider folks like you and I sort of the journeyman of entrepreneurship. In other words, we're not in Silicon Valley. We might not be at this point seeking investment money. What's your outlook, or what's your advice? I mean, do you think should people be trying to go for like the home runs all the time, or should they branch out and just have a multiple product portfolio like you do? What are your thoughts on that? Should you, is it for better or for worse? Should you be spreading yourself out too thin? Like, I'm not going to say you're too thin, but you get the idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I've certainly suffered from that, like being spread too thin and lacked focus, and it has had an impact on businesses, like stagnated and everything. And then when I chose to focus on one thing at a time, it really helped. So, but to step back, I mean, I'm personally very much of the bootstrapped mindset, and really in the last year or two, I've been really excited about this whole community around bootstrapping and self-funding your business. And there is a really thriving community built up around this, and it kind of reminds me of the WordPress community in a lot of ways, and there's certainly plenty of overlap in these two worlds. You look at what Rob Walling and Mike Tabor have done with their Startups for the Rest of Us podcast and their conference MicroConf. And lately there have been plenty of other podcasts around bootstrapping and then communities forming around those, and it's a lot of the same people. So I've been really excited about all that, and basically the whole concept is like, look, we're just building these businesses one paying customer at a time. We're not interested in going out and getting VC venture funding. Honestly, for me, I've never been interested in that, frankly, because I don't even understand it. Like, I don't even get why. If I were to get millions of dollars of funding, I don't know how I would spend that money. And the whole notion of starting a business and immediately going millions of dollars into debt, I don't like that math. I prefer starting at zero and getting like $100 plus.
Yep.
Plus column. So that's always just kind of made sense to me. But then, like, even within this world, whether it's in WordPress, in the WordPress community, or the bootstrapping self-funded community, you still get those stories of the exceptions, the outliers who do extremely well. Like within our little, like the guys that I follow and talk to and all that stuff. You look at like Nathan Barry and like Brennan Dunn and Rob Walling and all these other guys who do hit the home runs, who have the multi-$1,000 launches and multi-six-figure incomes for off these bootstrapped businesses, and we all fall into that trap where it's you kind of like idolize, or it seems so attainable, but then it doesn't hit reality. And what I've learned, and I've had to learn the hard way, honestly, is everybody goes through this gradual, step-by-step struggle, or to get to that kind of success, you have to go through all the little steps that came before it, and those guys went through them just like the rest of us have gone through it. So it's about starting small, taking it one step at a time, and really acknowledging the wins that you have. Like when you get one paying customer, do you know how huge that is? That is such a huge accomplishment, to get one person to pay, like a stranger, not your friend,
not your mom.
Yeah, to get one person on the internet to pay you money for something, a $19 ebook or something. It's like, that's huge. That's even bigger than the 100th customer. So,
can you share one of those hard lessons learned with us, and what did you learn from that maybe you applied to this launch of this new product, or what is it? How has it really changed?
Let's see. Well, I guess. Okay, so like looking back to last year, it was around this time last year in 2013 that I launched my first ebook, designed for conversions, and that was like my first educational product that I've ever sold. Um, and at the time, I think I had like a couple hundred people on my email list. It was a pretty small audience at the time, and I was reading a lot of Nathan Barry and the other guys and everything, and I was really excited about the idea of writing and selling an ebook around something that I was really interested in, that I felt I had a lot to share on, which was how to design an effective marketing website. And you know, not that that product was a flop or anything. I think it actually did fairly well, especially considering I only had about 350 people on my list at the time. You know, but I think what happened was I rushed into the idea of building a product, and I didn't do enough research into my audience, and I at the time I didn't have as big of an audience to tap into for that research. So I kind of just wrote something that I felt had value, and a few people in my audience saw that it had value, but that value didn't apply to everyone. And what I learned going into Productize now, you know, over the year that followed, I spent way more time, number one, just building my audience and writing lots and lots of content, and not just producing lots of content, but really understanding who is in my audience and what are the questions that I need to be answering in order to make this content resonate. You know, and I did that a few ways. You know, number one, I have a welcome email, so everyone who joins my email newsletter, on the second day, they're going to get an email response from me, and the subject line says questions. And in there, I have 3 really short questions. I say something like, you know, by now you might know a thing or two about me, but now I want to know about you. And let me open it up right now. So those 3 questions are, number one, what are you currently working on? And number 2, where do you want to be 12 months from now? And number 3, what's your biggest challenge that's standing in your way? And I get a lot of replies to this, and I have a lot of them that are waiting for me to read and reply right now. But I read every single one, and I try to reply to every one. And these are so insightful if you're trying to create content, because you start to see the same things come up again and again, the same answers, and some of them are really, really long and detailed. And you start to really understand, like, what are these people doing every day, and like the challenges and the struggles, and that gets into like writing for people who might just be, you know, a year or two behind. And there are plenty of people who subscribe to my audience who are probably a couple of years ahead of me, but for one reason or another, they've resonated with something that I wrote, and that's awesome, you know. And it's really inspiring me to read these questions, and then like the article that I'm writing today, I'm going to hopefully publish it later today, is called Finding the Time to Change Your Business. Everybody struggles with finding enough time to work on their business and not work in their business. Like everybody's, whether you're caring for kids at home and you've got a family, or you're just tied up in all this client work, like how are you ever going to find the time to work on a product or productizing and all that? That answer, this article came straight from the answers from this email, seeing the same answers again and again. So I just wrote all about that. So that's one thing that I would recommend everyone do, is ask your audience to reply to your emails and ask them what they're working on and what's most challenging. And so I know I'm kind of just droning on a little bit here, but like in the last year, well, in the last year in 2014, I iterated a little bit on the topic, which eventually became this productize course. Like at first, I thought that I was going to do a product around content marketing and systemizing that, like how to hire writers and how to systemize the whole editorial calendar, like, because I did all that stuff with Restaurant Engine, and it's been pretty effective. So I wrote some content around that, and I did like a free email course around that, and a handful of people kind of resonated with that, but not a whole lot. I was able to see that, like, of of the people who read those articles or read those emails, only like less than 1% of them actually opted in to a potential product, to hear about a potential product around that. So I was like, okay, I'm not seeing not much is resonating there. So then over the summer, I did a survey of my audience, like a one-time survey, asked a bunch of questions like, where are you at right now? Like, are you freelancing? Are you running a product? Are you at an agency? A couple more questions around like, what's challenging you right now? Who are the other things that you're reading? Who are the other blogs and books and all that? And everyone in my audience said that, or the vast majority of the people who replied to that survey said that they're in this transition. They're trying to break out of freelance work, and they're trying to get more into products. And they're just kind of unsure of the path for how to get there. And that's when I really landed on productize. Like, I knew that productize consulting and services were something that's happening right now. It's something that's worked well for me. So then I launched this free course, which you can still take today. It's a crash course on productizing. You can get that right on the homepage of castjam.com. It's a 6-lesson email course all about how to productize your business. And the response for that was, compared to the first one, was through the roof. I mean, this thing converts like crazy, and then people get to the productize landing page, which I launched a few months back before the actual product was built. That converts like crazy. Plenty of people are signed up for the early access list, and that's what allowed this product to actually come together, and that's what convinced me to go ahead and spend the last 2 months, shooting all these videos and editing and creating and putting it out. And now we're about 1 week into the launch of this course, and it's definitely successful. I do plan to Jordan and I, my co-host on our podcast on Bootstrapped Web, in November, we'll do an episode where I go in detail into the whole launch sequence and the results and the numbers and all that stuff. So that'll come out in a few weeks.
That's great. Number one, thanks for being so honest and really opening up to the Brian of last year, hopping in the DeLorean, setting the clock to 2013, and jumping back in time and then comparing yourself. So I do appreciate that. And you know what? I know it's one of those things where it's tough to sort of admit to these. I don't even want to say weaknesses, because they're not weaknesses. It's just it's the growth of an entrepreneur. Like, number one, it took you, years, up until 2013 when you did your first product launch. It took you years to build up to that, and it's just another journey. It's another learning process, another notch on the belt to sort of get to the next level. And I think too many of us. Again, I go back to like the celebrityness, the glamour of startup, and a lot of people see this stuff and they're convinced by other marketers that it's so easy.
Oh yeah.
You can become that millionaire over a weekend, and the market is so inundated with that stuff, and it drives me nuts. Me
too. And that's what I'm really afraid of, especially as I'm launching these educational products and writing so much on my blog. I am afraid of that misconception that like this is not easy. I'm not selling an easy solution.
Right.
And yes, I said earlier that launching a productized service, you can launch it very quickly, and that's true, but you can't build a business quickly. That takes years.
Right.
And what I try to write about is how to get traction really quickly, how to take those first steps really quickly, and then how to build on that and how to systemize and scale it up, and then but really I want to stress that it's there are no easy solutions out there.
Nope.
And all those success stories that you see out there, it's not that they just got lucky. It's just that you're only hearing about their highlight reel.
Right.
You're not hearing about all the flops, because there were a lot of them.
Yep. It's the 10-year overnight success, right? It took you 10 years to get successful overnight. One of my first, like when I first started getting into, what is web marketing and spinning up my own company, I was very much in tune, and I still am today, to Chris Brogan, good guy up here in the Boston area. And I remember getting on a webinar with him, and I think the webinar was like $40 or $50 or something like that. And back then he was very much into social media and blogging and Twitter and talking about those aspects. And I remember somebody asking him the question of, how much money did you make on this call? And it was $50 multiplied by the X amount of people on the call, and he showed his screen, and it was like he made $13,000 on that one call. And then you saw like the chat room like light up, and people were like, "Oh my God, like $13,000, that's amazing," and all this stuff. And he's like, "But it took me at the time that he recorded, it took me 10 years to get to this. This is like 10 years of experience bottled up, for this one time." So
exactly,
it just takes a boatload of time.
Exactly, it's starting small and just building one brick at a time. That reminds me of what Justin Jackson did. He runs a podcast called Product People, and he writes a lot, and he has a great newsletter. I think he has a pretty good sized audience at this point, but he talked about how he wanted to just launch a really simple product and launch something quickly, and what he did was just a paid webinar. I forgot what the cut, maybe around $100 a seat, and he just booked it on a Saturday, and that's it. Like, he didn't have to go out and write a whole book or course or build a big software product. Like, this was one of his first products, but that gave him a little bit of a very nice revenue. Like, not a $13,000 launch, but it was, I think he only opened it up to like 20 people or something like that.
Yep.
And then that kind of not only validates, but gives him like the runway to go and build a bigger product, which I think he then did a whole course.
Yeah.
So you just got to start small.
Yeah. So as we're cruising along here, and I know you're gonna talk about this in one of the feature episodes for Bootstrapped Web Podcast. But what's one piece of advice for promoting a product? A lot of people struggle with that too. I mean, they finally build it. They spend all that time crafting this product. They get it ready. They finish their landing page. How do they get it out there? What's been the best vehicle for you getting the name out there for the new product?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is to start way earlier than most people start that promotion process. I was talking about Productize at least 3 months ago. From the very first moment that I thought that I might build this into a course, I had a landing page up. And before that, I had even wrote a 6-part free email course, which is still available now. So it started with that. Is like, start with writing the content and educating around that topic, and then let people know, like, look, I'm in the process, or I might be in the process of building a course around this. Enter your email to join the early access list, and then what I did and what everyone should do is do the research after that, and that means personally emailing those people who enter their email and hop on Skype calls with them. And I go through a whole process for doing this, customer research, interviews, and everything, but that's in the course. But basically what you want to do is send them an email, get on a call with them, interview them, ask them all about, like, what are you working on, what were you working on last year, where do you want to be next year, and a whole list of questions, and really dig into and ask them, like, what makes you interested in this? Like, you entered your email in this early access list, so what is it about this that's resonating with you, and figure out what those specific pain points are, and then you do 10 or 20 of those interviews. Again, you start to see patterns, and then you can go back and rewrite the copy on that landing page using the very things that, like, take it out of their mouths, out of the customer's mouths, and like, because they explain their pain points much better than you would. Like for Productize, for example, I found that early, the first version of that landing page, the top headline said something like, I forgot exactly, but it was like, transition from being a freelancer to being a business owner, right? Like, level up to being a business, something like that. And that's kind of what I thought was the main way to resonate. And then through these interviews, I kept hearing, I'm just sick of billing by the hour. I'm sick of having my income so tied to my time. And that's when I realized that billing by you want to break free of billable hours. So now that's the headline, like, break free of billable hours. I think that's what it is. And like another thing that kept coming up, and I didn't even realize this, but it was true for myself, but I didn't realize it until people told me on these interviews, is they hate writing these proposals. They hate writing the discovery process. So I learned that that's like a main pain point, is like, eliminate the discovery process. You don't have to write lengthy proposals or estimates, and like that's a phrase that came straight out of somebody's mouth.
Yep.
And
awesome.
And then like that, like in terms of promoting it, like when the day comes, like I reached out to plenty of podcasts, and I did plenty of guest article writing, and that's been very, very good. But again, that's something that has taken years to build up, right? Like a complete unknown new person will not have much success when it comes to, if you're just trying to write your very first guest article and you haven't been blogging elsewhere before, So around this month and last month, I had a few articles come out on like Michael Hyatt's blog, Web Designer Depot, Mashable. I think I have one coming out on Smashing Magazine pretty soon. These relationships didn't happen overnight. I landed those guest articles, or I landed those relationships over years of writing for other articles, writing for smaller blogs, writing on my own blog, and then I leveraged those into those opportunities to get these placements at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of some of the things that I hear from folks that contact me is I tell them, they're like, I'm going to create this product. I'm going to be, a millionaire because that's what your podcast told me. And they think enough to just launch. Even in this day and age, they think that if you just build it, they'll come and you'll be, revenue will be, through the roof. It takes time to create this audience. And if you're afraid, if you come to me and you say, I'm going to launch this product, and I say, what does your audience look like? And they say, oh God, like number one, I don't have an audience. I barely use Twitter and I never blog. And forget podcasting because I don't like the way I look or I don't like my voice. You're going to be very, very hard off to try to get launched and get traction unless you get this amazing product that's in a perfect category and you're going to just spend boatloads of money on pay-per-click. Because I don't know how else you're going to get organic traffic. And then even if you say, you know what, Matt, we can do that. We can optimize. We can do SEO. We can do pay-per-click. You're probably not going to be of the mindset to talk to your audience and talk to your customers. Like if you're uncomfortable with that stuff, maybe that's the next product. You have to start getting more comfortable with yourself in order to get there.
Yeah, totally. And like even if there is no easy way to just pay for this stuff to happen. Like you can, even if you have thousands of dollars to go throw at PPC and AdWords and stuff like that. Even that, that still needs to be centered around education, because you can't just point PPC ads straight to a sales page. You're not gonna, that stuff doesn't convert. You have to point it to an educational resource, and then get them to join your list, and then email them on a regular basis and give them more and more content and free value before they feel comfortable and even trust you for to be in a position where you could ask them to buy something.
Yep.
And like I think like education is so central to whether you're in the software business, the plugin business, the themes business, or the educational products business. Education is at the center of all of it. Yep. That's marketing today is teaching.
I'm going to skip on over to the very last question as we're running out of time here, but you started your own podcast. You started doing it mostly solo and then some interview stuff, but recently you brought on Jordan as a co-host. How has that helped with the podcast? How did you guys meet? Tell us about that story.
Oh yeah, that's been awesome. So Bootstrapped Web is our podcast, and we are up to episode 46 now, and you are on episode 46.
Nice.
So that's coming out on Thursday of this week, and so yeah, like it started as my own podcast, which I started about a year ago, and for a while it was just me, and I brought on guests and I did interviews, and I think it was okay. Like I had a few higher profile interviews that did pretty well, and then others that were just kind of like really I was just interviewing people that I was interested in talking to, and I think that they were fairly interesting conversations, but overall it didn't really get a whole lot of traction. But then it kind of got to a point where I wanted to transition the show and get away from interviewing and talk more about just the experience of running the business from day to day. And so I invited my friend Jordan Gal, and I've known Jordan for over a year now. He and I are in a mastermind group together, and so that's how I met him. And he and I have like really hit it off over the last year. In a lot of ways we think the same about business, but then there are plenty of ways where we are really different views or different experiences, and I think that's what really helps the show a lot. So I brought him on, and he became the co-host, and most of the episodes today are basically just me and him, and we pick one theme to talk about. Like we did one whole episode a couple weeks ago all about customer research and how to do that, or how we've done it in our businesses as well. We did one all about webinars. We did one, last week's we did it all about like building an audience and like why and how to go about building an audience. But then occasionally we do bring on a guest. So yesterday we had you on, and that's publishing this week, and we talked all about like family business, partnering with family members and doing business with family. I thought that was really interesting. So it's just been awesome. And so he's been on 10 or 12 episodes at this point. And yeah, we really noticed an increase in listenership, in iTunes reviews, tweets, people, sending in questions and wanting us to cover certain topics. And like, yeah, it was like a really noticeable difference. And the other thing is, like, I never used to listen back to my own episodes because, frankly, I was like, well, why should I? I was there. Like, I don't need to listen to it, But since doing it with Jordan, most of these episodes I actually do go back and listen to most of them, and it's become like really interesting for me to listen back, and like you catch all these things that we talked about that I don't even remember talking about that, or hearing someone else talk about that, and so I think that's a good sign. I think it's become definitely more interesting.
Has it sort of taken away some of the weight of doing a podcast, and I just feel like we're almost I'm almost 100 episodes in on the Matt Report. Sometimes I feel like there's a certain weight of either performing or creativity or just doing it in general as a podcaster. Has the partnership sort of helped with that too?
Yeah, it definitely has helped. Number one, when I was doing only interviews, I would constantly have to find guests to book and then do research and prepare the questions and all that. So that was a lot of work. Just producing the shows, like we've split up that work as well. Like I do the editing and getting it up, and he prepares all the show notes and everything. So that helps. But then the other piece is, so like on the other side of this is like it also took us a few episodes to really get used to the dynamic, because it's a totally different dynamic. Just me and him talking for an hour or more lately. They've been pretty long. So we have to kind of get used to staying focused and staying on topic. And we both kind of collaborate quite a bit on the notes beforehand. Like in a Google Doc, we'll prepare like what are we going to cover. And me and him will have like an hour conversation before we even hit record, just figuring out what we're going to talk about. But I think even that's, we're only like 12 episodes into doing this together, so we're starting to notice like even more like chemistry is coming together and figuring out like how to run these shows better. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a fan. I was a fan before that, and I think it's great. I think it's refreshing, and it's so interesting because I start thinking about this, just like network TV. It's just like when you have your favorite show that you watch all the time, right? And then season 2 comes out, and you're like, how are they going to keep this going? This is so awesome. And then season 3 comes out, and it's totally different. You're like, this sucks. Why did they do that? It's because they're always trying to find something new. It's a new twist. So as much as like new media sort of laughs at old media, they've already experienced all this stuff. Doing it over and over again, finding new material, bringing on new people to the show. It's like the same challenges. It's crazy. It's definitely interesting to be in this space and kind of see those ebbs and flows.
It really is. I love podcasting. I think this whole space it's still so new. It's old. Like podcasts go back to like the 90s, but like it still feels new and like untapped, right? Like when you think about like trying to gain listeners and an audience on a podcast, as hard as it is to like produce technically a podcast, it's easy to get listeners if you're talking about interesting things and like just ranking in like the iTunes directory compared to ranking in say Google for your blog is infinitely easier, you know. So.
Well, Brian, this has been an awesome discussion. I know we went way over time today, but I think it was well worth it. Lots of great lessons here today. I don't even know where to begin to do a recap, so I'm not going to. I'm just going to say, if you made it this far, listen to it again, because there's just a ton of stuff to kind of sink your teeth into, so that was great. Where can folks find the new product? Where can they find you on the web? Where are all things Brian?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is so much fun every time I come on here. So thanks for having me back. So that free crash course on productizing, that you can find that on the homepage of castjam.com. I am castjam on Twitter, and the new productize is available at castjam.com/productize.
That's castjam.com/productize. I invite everybody to go check that out. If you're thinking about, I want to turn my services into a product, I'm sick and tired of trading hours for dollars, definitely go check that out. That's castjam.com/productize. Everybody else, if you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. 5-star review. Let's try to see if we can beat Bootstrapped Web in the iTunes directory. You can just head on over to iTunes, search for Matt Report. You don't even have to leave a review. Just drag your mouse over to the 5 stars, hit the 5th star, click it. It'll be awesome. We will all appreciate that. mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about how to run a WordPress agency, freelance business, whatever, check out mattreport.com/join, and you can join the mastermind call, the private forums, and all the good stuff that we do behind the scenes at the Matt Report. Until next time, everybody, see you then.